The poll for Group Ironman is now finished. 141,510 people voted on this poll, making Group Ironman Old School RuneScape's largest poll. There has also been the first round of wilderness changes and some gear rebalancing, but we'll get to that in a moment. Let's start with Group Ironman. People were worried that Group Ironman wouldn't pass because of spite voting, but the poll actually passed with ease, with 80.1% of players voting yes. That's only 19.9% of players voting no. Just shy of 112,000 votes for yes, and just under 28,000 votes for no. And the option for Ironman to buy bonds at the Grand Exchange also passed with ease, with 87.1% of players voting yes. But the Ironman cannot sell the bonds, only buy them. There's also a new blog that goes over some of the frequently asked questions about Group Ironman and the poll. And I want to take a quick look at it, but I won't be going through everything. I don't think all of it is necessary, but if you do want to see the blog for yourself, you can go look in the description below. So they say that the Group Ironman poll is now closed, and they acknowledge that there's been a lot of discussion around the poll and the poll system itself. So it's good to know that they've been listening. I'm going to jump ahead to some of the frequently asked questions. So the first one was, why even poll this game mode? Basically, they did this because they have already polled Ironman, and that was along with Ultimate Ironman, and they also polled Hardcore Ironman as well. So they felt it was necessary to follow suit with Group Ironman. Hopefully some of the feedback that they were taking about the poll system was that optional game modes don't have to be polled anymore, because that I would personally like to see. The second question was, why does the poll question include the phrase, as described in the blog? I saw a lot of people talking about this on social media, saying that they would have added Group Ironman anyway, just not the way that it was described in the blog. This has been debunked by the Old School team themselves now, saying that it's only included to ensure people know exactly what they're voting for, as they're not going to add every single question into the poll. They go on to say this does not mean that we would have ignored the poll result and added Group Ironman in anyway with slight differences. One that I'm quite interested in myself is, why did you poll it so close to the proposed release date and so far into development? They say that this is not something that they will be repeating again. A lot of the under the hood work began a long time ago to allow us to do things like clans. The last elements of the content design were finalized recently, and so the blog and the poll came later than we would have liked. In hindsight, we could have polled Group Ironman as a general concept, stating that we'd be polling things like storage, grouping, and prestige at a later date. And I personally think this works for everyone, that way that they don't have to waste development time, and we don't have to get excited about something that potentially won't even happen. So I think they should poll things far earlier. And a final one, which I want to take full credit for, even though it is generally a silly question to ask, were you going to add Group Ironman if it didn't pass the poll? And the short answer is no. They would have respected the polls, but they do say that they would have reviewed the result and the feedback, and then they would have considered revising the design and then re-poll again. Now, this is the part I'm not going to get into. This is statistics for the poll. The last thing I want to touch on here is how they say that the vote percentage remained generally consistent at around 83 to 84% yes. And then after the Deadman issues that happened on Friday, the poll went down to 79 to 80%. This is something I personally said I think affected Group Ironman, and something that I was really worried about actually, but it actually didn't affect it too much, so pretty good. So that's all for Group Ironman. I want to move on to the Wildy and equipment rebalancing. So the PvP community must have actually made some noise because the Wilderness Changes project is back in business. So again, I'm going to quickly go over it. Probably not read everything, but try and nail the main points. So they start by saying that it's been a while since they talked about the wilderness changes, but the first in the long promised updates are coming today. They regret to say that it's taken them much longer to get around to the changes than they had hoped. One of the reasons why it took so long is because a huge but critical technical rework was recently urgently required, taking a developer out of the project for multiple months. In addition to that, they've also had to reallocate resource in support of upcoming content, and apparently that left them in a position where the only option was to wait for that work to be done before they could finish all the wilderness changes. So what changed? Well, we start with the rebalancing of Dragonhide armor. They say, our focus is on changing the melee and magic defense bonuses of standard Dragonhide armors, in the hope that it would encourage players to try different armor pieces, and naturally rebalance the combat triangle. These changes will have a much lower impact on players who concentrate on PvM encounters. So here's what's changing. The TLDR is that basically they nerf the defense bonuses of D'hide towards melee and towards magic. The stats of God D'hide remain unchanged, but the defense requirement for God D'hide chaps is now down from 40 to 1, making it accessible to all players. So you can have D'hide on your 1 defense pure. So next up is Din's Bulwark. The Bulwark's defensive bonuses for Stab, Slash, and Crushed have been reduced by 35, 36, and 36 respectively, while the attack bonus on Crush has been increased by 14. And they increase the attack speed from 7 to 5. The Bulwark also gets a new passive effect. When you're not in defensive mode, your melee strength is increased. Additionally, enemies hit by the Bulwark's special attack will also have their highest defensive stat reduced by 5% of its current value. Either melee, attack plus strength, magic attack, or ranged attack. Now onto the Xerixan robes. The Xerixan robes now have a slightly reduced magic attack bonus, so in total 10 magic attack bonus is removed. Now for a buff. Elemental Staffs actually got a buff, which is an increase of 2+ to magic attack and the defense bonus. So that's all the equipment rebalances. There was just some other wilderness changes as well, like the wilderness swords will now slash webs while in your inventory. They've turned the middle entrance to the Revenant's Caves into a one-way cavern, and then they finish off with just some general updates, which I won't be covering here either. So that's about it. It's good that Group Ironman passed. I think we're all worried there for a bit. I know I certainly was. I also think it's good that they're working on the wilderness again, and I hope they keep at it. But that is all for this video. If you liked the video, maybe consider hitting subscribe, and also hit the like button if you liked it. It helps my channel reach more people, and I would really appreciate it. Thanks to all who watched this video, and I'll see you in the next one.